Welcome to Times Up Outdoors podcast episode. I don't know what one we're on.
We're like 13 or 14
something like that.
Or 16. Or
sounds like a good title. I don't know.
It sounds great. We're at the Outdoor Rama, Michigan's largest outdoor show, and sitting in the bar here at the hotel lobby, and we got some pretty cool people here. We're just gonna sit around and have a little BS session about saddle hunting and
life in general,
and deer hunting with John Eberhart. He's here, but he's actually just here for likes and follows.
And the coffee.
And let's go around the table and introduce everybody. We got.
So this is Ernie Power from Tethrd.
I'm Zach from Gaylord.
Gaylord.
John Boersma from Bowhunter Chronicles.
Adam Miller from the Bowhunter Chronicles.
Chad Goethe from Tethrd.
John Shido from
John Eberhart from my mother.
Yes,
you mother.
And then John. Nico's not here. He's at work because he sucks and he couldn't take the time off, apparently.
This is true.
Yeah. So, anyways, how's the show going for Tethrd?
Good. I mean, the booth stays pretty busy. We had the new Phantom here today, so we're getting some of those in people's hands, and it's always fun to meet new saddle hunters and see the light in their eyes the minute they sit down. And they're like, "Oh, this isn't supposed to be this comfortable. This thing is awesome," and so it's always fun to see that. And then we've got some of the return faces that we've seen in years past and other adventures showing up. So it's been a lot of fun.
How many years have you come to this show particularly?
This will be my second year.
Yeah. Same with us.
Yeah.
So, and let's talk about Tethrd for a minute, since we've never had you on. How long has Tethrd been in existence?
So officially, we opened our store Memorial Day weekend 2018.
Okay.
So we're just shy of 2 years.
2 years. And
thank you.
Just give us a little backstory on Tethrd.
So Tethrd really was born out of a group of DIY guys who, for whatever selfish reasons, thought we could do it better, and if we can sell 50 or 100 pieces, we can get our stuff for free. So we literally were like, hey, if we did this, we really like it this way, and hopefully somebody else does, at least 50 people, because we'll have enough money to get our own equipment at that point.
You can interrupt yourself if you want to order the drink.
That's
the important things.
I know it.
Then whatever the IPA is.
Just so we know, we're at a bar here. And
Yes.
Ernie's ordering a double.
If you're listening and you can't see, we're at a bar.
It's a long show.
So at that point, kind of the long story is a group of guys had gotten together to work on building a platform, and I was part of that group. And Greg Godfrey, my business partner, had been working on a saddle on his own. And we got on the phone one day and said, hey, let's kind of join forces and we'll try and build the best saddle hunting store that's ever been created. And so far it's been going really well. It's something that we take a lot of feedback and a lot of suggestions from the saddle hunting community and try and incorporate it into products that everybody can use.
And Tethrd seems to me to be the hottest one in the industry right now. There's other companies out there, but I don't even know who they are.
Contest.
We have Greg Godfrey, and I like to nicely call him the mouth of the South because he gets out and talks, right? And he does a really good job of marketing for us. He does a really good job of making sure everybody knows that we exist.
Yeah.
We have some great people that we work with, some different media influencers. You'll see us on certain YouTube channels and some of these places. And I think the real testament, though, is the word of mouth. As much as we can put advertising out on our own, there's nothing compared to the guy who uses it and tells his buddy.
Exactly. Yeah.
So that's, I think, where the most of it comes from.
Well, John, you were just saying a minute ago that you've been in the industry a long time.
I've been in the industry since 1975. I was a buyer up at Jay's Sporting Goods, which at the time was the biggest sporting goods store in Michigan. And I've written several books, and the first book I wrote was in 2003. And on all three books I've written, I've got chapters in them about saddle hunting, and I started hunting out of a saddle in 1981. So I've been saddle hunting for 39 seasons, and To give you a little bit of stats, I've got 50 bucks in the record book, and 44 of them were shot out of a saddle.
We like hearing those stats.
Yeah, I do. I like saying those stats.
I'm sure you do. I'm sure you do.
I like hearing those.
I get jealous of those stats.
And I've been going to this show for quite a few years, and the one in Lansing as well, and doing seminars. That's what I'm kind of here for, and supporting Tethrd, because as much as I've tried to promote saddle hunting over the years, which I've always tried to promote it because it's hands down the best way to bow hunt or even gun hunt for whitetails, blows tree stands away, in my opinion. Greg and Ernie have definitely blown this whole saddle thing out of the water with their social media presence and their desire to get these things made in the simplest form to make it the most user-friendly saddle out there, which they have definitely done.
Right.
Feel free to jump in on it.
Oh, yeah,
whenever
yeah.
You want. Just have a conversation.
I got a question. I don't know if this is going to be a little bit animosity, but who was the... So you started your company 2 years ago, right?
Yep.
And you've been hunting out of it since, what,
1981.
81. So who was your first saddle company? How did you...
The first
You beat
one...
you beat the curve. You beat everybody to it.
Yeah, the first one that was ever on the market was called the Anderson Tree Sling.
Okay.
And when I bought one, and I bought it at Jay's Sporting Goods, it was just basically, it looked like a bunch of seat belts gone wrong, bunch of seat belt fabric in a poly bag. And nobody knew what it was. So nobody in the
just
store.
A rescue harness that somebody decided to hang up against a tree.
Looked like a bunch of straps in a bag.
Right.
So I looked at the picture, and it had showed this guy, like a consumer's power guy on a telephone pole. He was actually sitting in a little hammock-like seat, and the lead strap going up and was hooked to the pole. And I thought, it showed him kind of moving around the tree. Stick figures, obviously. This was drawings. But it showed him shooting 360 degrees, and he could prep a lot of trees and hunt them all with the same saddle. And at the time, it was called a tree sling. So I bought one, and it took me a couple of years to figure it out. But when I first started using it, it felt awkward because it was awkward. It's nothing like, the saddles that Tethrd is making now. But it was extremely awkward, but I could see the advantages of it. And to me, always wanting to improve my game, I knew if I could modify this to fit my personal needs, I'd kill more deer out of it. That's exactly what happened. I modified it. I've made modifications to it, and that's kind of where I started.
That's pretty odd. I mean, the fact that you essentially you were you're gonna be pissed. The dinosaur of the
no, that doesn't piss me. That does not piss me off at all. I'm happy to be that dinosaur.
I'm going to be honest. I didn't even think about hunting a saddle. In our job, we use rescue harnesses, doing search, high angle stuff. We go through training wearing the stuff. Any kind of climbing cert you get, you're going to be sitting in one of these, essentially a rescue harness, and it never even crossed my mind until 2 years ago when I saw him. Like, what the hell is he doing on that stick? I got to go buy one of these.
I actually teach rope rescue classes, and we drive all over the country teaching classes, and I'm in those class 1 saddles essentially, but it harnesses all day long. I never even literally thought you can hunt out of this. Sure. And I see you guys and I had heard about saddle hunting, but I wasn't really in the know of it until I saw you guys last year at Outdoor Rama. That's what really got us.
We met basically because we shared a booth space across the aisle.
Yeah, pretty much right across the aisle. So I had known a little bit about saddle hunting going into that. My buddy at work was talking about it. Tethrd was the one that I knew about. And so when we got to our booth and they're across, we had no idea. We didn't even know we had a booth until like the night before the booth was open.
This is true.
He calls me. He's like, "You got a booth at Outdoor Rama?" I'm like, "What are we gonna do?" He's like, "I don't know." I'm like, "Okay, let's go. Let's do it." So we show up and he's got his booth. I'm like, "That's a Tethrd guy. That's that saddle thing that Brandon Carter was talking to me about." I'm like, "That's crazy. He's right across the way." And then I knew who you were. I'm like, "That's really weird.
Right,
We're right across from these guys." It was cool. It ended up being a forming a good relationship.
But then we were kind of like too shy to even like talk to you guys about it. And we're like, all right, and then we're sitting here, the three of us. We're like, oh, we're doing big things.
I'm gonna go talk to him. I'm gonna go talk to him.
They're sitting right there, and we're like, well, let's see if they want a beer.
It's pretty funny because now we know you, and we're like,
well, I mean, you bailed me out of a tight jam even this fall because I had to go shower at your mom's house after the
I
public
forgot
land
about
challenge
that.
this year.
I completely forgot about that.
Whoa, 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 whoa. Somebody's gotta tell a
I
story.
didn't even remember that.
The plot thickens.
Craig and I got done with the public land challenge, and we drove into town. We're all filthy. We're like, all we need is a shower so
You
that
were
we
going
can
on a
get ready.
muskie trip or something, weren't you?
Yeah, maybe it was the muskie trip.
It was before,
It was
yeah.
after the muskie trip because we were all slimy from the fish, and we had to catch a plane that day, and we wanted to clean up before we could get on the plane.
Yeah.
That's what it was.
You're like, where can I take a shower? I was at work.
Yeah, so I call him Scott, and he's like, hey, you can go to my mom's house.
Yeah. Yeah. Because Amanda was at work, and I was like, you go to my house. My brother's so much. You go to my mom's. She's there. So my mom's like, yeah, they were really nice.
So you went
They
over
were
there.
really nice boys, she said.
They're really nice boys.
You showered at Mrs. Ziegler's house.
Yeah, like we bought
I don't know if
towels
my
and
dad
brought our
knows
own
that.
towels, and like we stopped at Target, bought a bunch of towels and soap and all that stuff, and we drove and knocked on the door. We're like, hey, I don't even know you. I know your kid, and I think your son, I think your new child was there that time too, because she might have been watching him.
Yeah,
and
he probably was, yeah.
And yeah, so we just kind of went in, showered, sat there and told a few stories, and then left and went and got on a plane.
But I think that story, to me, is so cool because since we've been doing Times Up Outdoors for the last 2 years almost, I think the coolest part about it has been the relationships that we formed with people that we never would have talked to if we weren't doing it. So, meeting you and that kind of story, it's like you meet these people in the industry like you guys. We just met you, the Bowhunter Chronicle guys, just this today.
Right.
And I'm sure we'll probably stay friends now. You know, you form a relationship with people in the hunting industry, and that's the coolest part to me about doing all
It
this
is.
shit.
It's a huge world. It is a huge network that brings everybody kind of together all at one.
We're all
one time.
doing a common thing. We all
Yeah.
love hunting.
Hunting
Yeah.
community's pretty tight.
Yeah,
It
the
is.
hunting,
No doubt
and it's
about
small too. I mean, ultimately, you get to know a lot of people in a hurry,
Yeah.
and that's kind of who's there.
Yeah,
So-
you do.
So I got to know how you linked up with these guys.
Yeah, all these guys. Yeah.
Right.
How
Man,
did you guys? It's like a random group of people here.
Yeah,
We got
I mean-
Zach from Gaylord.
John from his mom.
How did you?
Me from my
How'd that work out?
I mean, ultimately, it's through Tethrd, right?
Yeah, right.
And for sure with Zach and Chad and everybody, it's just like these are names that pop up, and they're constantly wanting to help and whatever else. And last year we asked for some volunteers at a trade show, and these guys came and helped out. And Adam, everybody's just. It all comes from the saddle hunting community and that group of people, because like you said, it's a small world. People are tight, and with social media, you can literally have relationships with people all over the country.
Yeah.
And I mean, I knew Greg literally for over 5 years and had never seen his face. I met him face to face at Saddlepalooza 6 months before we launched Tethrd. Like, I had only talked to him on the phone and on online forums, but we had known each other for years through the Saddle Hunter Forum. We'd always been in communication, but it's really weird, right? So if you go through my phone right now, all of the pro staff on
I don't want to
Tethrd.
go through your pictures.
No. But if
Could
you
be
look
scary.
at, if you
out of
look
town,
at,
your wife's missing you.
yeah. But if you go through like my phone book, most of the guys that are from the Tethrd staff, they're still in my phone as their Saddle Hunter usernames, because that's how I met these guys. So like Taylor is Putt for Doe, Greg is
Putt
G2
for
Outdoors,
Doe. Okay.
Sean is Bass Boy, and I have them all in my
That's
phone
funny.
as their usernames from Saddle
That's
Hunter, because
awesome.
that's where I learned them. I didn't know these guys' real names forever, and it's so weird the first time I went to Saddlepalooza when I actually got to sit in a fire with all of these people that I've been talking to for years, and all of a sudden I had to learn everybody's names, and I'm like, it was
What
it
the
was
real
really
names are.
interesting.
We have a similar in the fire service. It's a small world too. So like we relate the fire service to the hunting community the same way. Like we know same thing with social media now. We know people from all over the place. I mean, I have gotten jobs because of just networking with people, and I got jobs that are out of state with other firemen. And the hunting community is the same way as the fire service. It's the same thing.
Sure.
You literally have the same situations where I work for a nonprofit, and it's because of all these people that I talked to for years on Facebook, and then it just turned into something. And then one day I had to actually meet them in person. It was weird. It was pretty cool. But it's a tight-knit community. There's almost like, they say in the fire service it's a brotherhood. I really think you got that in the hunting community as well.
Sure.
And there's, people are going to listen to this and there's going to be bullshit. There's drama. We have it in the fire service too.
Sure.
And so, and it doesn't matter. You get a group of people together, you're going to have some weird shit.
With the tethered thing, we definitely have people who are, pro-tethered. We have some people who aren't.
I haven't seen that.
Yeah, you haven't seen that?
No, I haven't.
Oh, okay.
I think I know one person.
Yeah. But if you go back to the old days of the Saddle Hunter Forum when there was, call it 1,000 members on that forum, most of those guys are pretty tight.
That's cool.
And they do a lot of things to kind of stick up for each other. I mean, there's been people who have had, like, a bow got lost in the mail or they did a PayPal deal and got screwed, and these guys will all pull together and, like, buy the guy that got screwed a new bow.
Oh,
like,
that's awesome.
I see that stuff happen all the time.
That's awesome.
And it's that core group of guys that were on Saddle Hunter in the beginning, back when saddle hunting was like, it was like the nerdy thing to do, and nobody did it.
It still is.
Yeah.
Still a lot of people do it.
Yeah.
Still nerdy.
Coming from a guy that still does not have a saddle yet is
I can't get away from these guys making fun of me. Hey,
I know a guy who can
saddle
hook
hunter.
you up.
I'm sure he told you about it.
right, yeah. Saddle hunting is the CrossFit of the hunting world right now.
Ernie does CrossFit too.
Oh, you do?
Well,
That explains. Yeah, you know what?
He's really into veganism.
it's an off-brand.
It's gluten free.
Yeah, it's
Oh
the
my
same
God,
thing.
you're
Hashtag
gluten-free
vegan
saddle
cats.
hunter CrossFit.
Don't say that. Yeah. So you guys, Bowhunter Chronicles.
Yeah.
How did you hook up with the Tethrd guys? Same thing.
So, this story is very hilarious to me, but
Then let's hear it.
embarrassing as well. So,
Even better. I like embarrassing.
So we started this podcast and started networking with other people that do podcasts. And this guy in Florida was like telling me about all these people, blah, blah, blah. You need to do the saddle hunting stuff. And I was like, no way, this is crazy. And so then finally I'm like, all right, well, at least for the podcast, I'm going to have to figure it out. So I'm like, I asked for one for Christmas. And my mom...
Your mom got it for you?
She did. But...
Did you get an erector set
Holy
too?
shit.
But you just wait.
Did it
'cause
say
this,
from Santa Claus on it?
yeah, no, it did not. No. However, no, this is, you think that's bad. So go down the line, right? And we've done like 4 podcasts at this point. We're just getting everything rolling, and actually, like, Greg had reached out to me, and it got lost in the whole thing about like, hey, do you want to, before Tethrd or like right when it was starting up, like, hey, do you want to be part of this or anything like that? You want me to come on the podcast and talk saddle hunting, because Walter had put him in touch with us, right? Got lost. I never got back to him, like, whatever. So that was right when Tethrd launched, and then back orders were forever. It was pre-order, all this
Please
stuff.
don't remind me. That was hell.
Yeah, I
So,
remember that.
so then my mom orders this thing in like October for Christmas, and here it's December. So my mom is calling Tethrd saying my son has a podcast, and like emailing.
Your mom sounds like a wonderful person.
she was persistent. I do remember your mom.
She wrote you
You're
a
like,
very...
listen, I've never even showered in your house.
She wrote you a very angry letter.
It was, you've ruined my son's Christmas. It was,
Oh yeah.
it
Wow.
was, yeah.
That's
Laying it on like thick, the whole
You
thing.
ruined Christmas.
Yeah.
So
Oh my
That's
God.
tough, man.
I cannot believe I just put those 2 dots together in my head.
Wait, you just now realized that's
well, I
his
told
mom?
him that, like, yeah. So I told
Thanks,
him
Times
that
Up
at,
Outdoors for bringing that in.
at ATA, like the year after Christmas, because ATA is like right in January. So then my mom's telling me all this stuff, and I'm like, oh, Jesus Christ, like, you got to be fucking kidding me.
Yeah, you're like, I'm going to be embarrassed.
So then, like, he said Taylor, so we had Taylor on our podcast, and we go back and forth with Taylor. We had 9 million beers with Taylor like that.
Nice.
Right before that. So the next day, and they weren't at ATA exhibiting, right, I guess? You guys just walking around.
We were just there with backpacks. To be honest with you, we were kind of scoping it out. We wanted to see what AT is about, and whether or not we wanted to have a booth next year. So we were kind of,
This was last year?
So it would have been January 2019. 19.
Okay.
We went kind of incognito. We didn't, we went as G2 Outdoors. We had badges for press pass.
Yeah.
And we were just there getting the feel for the land, trying to figure out how we were going to do it. Because if we were going to do ATA, we were going to go big.
Yeah, you did. You went big. I saw all types of stories and posts and pictures.
Yeah, so regardless, like, I walk up to him and I'm like, yeah, hey, this is it. And Greg's like, oh, so you're the guy, your mom, right? And I'm like, yeah,
Dude,
that
that's
was my mom. And then so since then, like, you go out and whether it's the community is really small, like the hunting community or whatever, but even at ATA, like, there's a lot of shit that you don't care about or want to see, and a lot of egos and a lot of stuff. So you meet people that you can, like, relate to and stuff like that, and then you go out and just get shit-faced drunk with them, and then here we are, a year and a half later or whatever, saying.
And Taylor's one of those guys.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, Billy is John's sidekick here, so.
Oh yeah, Billy's another one. Billy actually took a saddle to Africa this year and killed a bunch of animals out of a saddle.
Did he film it?
I don't know if he filmed it or not.
Get pictures at least.
He's got pictures. Yeah.
That's good. That's cool.
That guy's awesome.
You guys are both from Michigan?
Yep.
And you're from Gaylord. I want to know about you. How did you volunteered to help out at the Tethrd booth?
Yeah.
Correct?
Yep.
And that's how you got hooked into this whole thing. Now, were you one of the forum guys?
I was on the forum a couple years ago during the summertime. I heard a podcast. It was one of Mark Kenyon's podcasts on Wired to Hunt.
I love Mark Kenyon.
Yeah, and it was with
Mark
John.
Kenyon still owes us some tumblers, though.
Yeah, you're not getting us.
Yeah, he told us he was going to send us some, and then he ghosted us.
He's had his hands full.
I know. I only say it to talk shit. I would say it if he was sitting right here. I'm like 100% sure that Mark Kenyon has his hands full. I'm not trying to be a jerk to Mark.
But like I said, he just had a new baby.
Yeah, I know. Mark is.
I could have my mom call him.
Every mom call Mark Kenyon say we need those tumblers.
I'm telling you, I cannot believe that was your mom. Now that I've put that story together in my head, because I remember your mom. She was pretty persistent.
I think my mom would do the same thing.
Yeah, I mean, she
got
loves
your
her
mom.
little boy.
Yeah, she loves you.
I'm her firstborn.
She loves you. She loves you.
Saddle and you ruined Christmas.
Hey.
No. Like I said, though, Mark Kenyon I'm not trying to be a jerk to Mark. He's good. He's got a great podcast.
He named his first kid First Light, so that's weird.
First Light Meat Eater.
Man, he's got a great thing going. It's just funny because we sent him a message about a fundraiser, and he was like, yeah, I'll send you some tumblers. And then, like, it was right around the time that, like, the Meat Eater stuff took off. And then we never really heard from him again. I'm like, what happened? You got busier than shit.
He switched gears, that's for sure.
Yeah, no shit.
No doubt.
So that's cool.
Yeah,
no, I just disclaimer. I'm just messing around. I don't want him to be like, fuck those guys.
Yeah, I mean, that dude's a hard worker.
Oh my
Or you
God.
could just edit all this out of the
His whole
podcast.
story is amazing.
Well, did you get a chance
care.
to hear the conversation we had with him at ATA where we kind of
No.
went through, you'll have to look it up, but we
Yeah, I
go
want to
through
know.
his whole story of how he built the Wired to Hunt, what the transition was like to go to Meat Eater, what the process was like to write his book, and all the things that, like, built Mark to where he is and what it took to get there, and it's a great story.
Shit ton of hard work.
Yeah.
That guy's
I mean,
got
that's
hard
ultimately
work.
what it was. Any success story requires a few things. You got to have hard work.
Yeah.
You got to have opportunity, and you got to take a big ass risk.
Yeah.
And he did all three of them, and it worked out perfect.
Yeah, and he does a lot of good for the hunting industry, and
Sure.
I learned a lot from Mark. I shot my biggest buck 2 years ago, and up to that point I had shot a whole bunch of year and a half old bucks. And
You're in Michigan.
Yeah, right. I spent 7 years passing deer. I didn't shoot a buck for 7 years. I finally shot a buck. It would have been 130. It broke his G2 off. He was about 120. And I sent Mark a message, and I said, hey, here's a picture of the deer I shot. And I feel that 100% I can attribute a lot of it to stuff I've learned listening to his podcast and him and then the guests that he has on there and how I ended up killing that deer. And he was awesome. He wrote right back. He was like, yeah, man, I love hearing that. That's cool. So
and Mark's one of the reasons that we were in the cameras that we're in, right?
100%.
Yeah.
The AX100s, I sent him a message again and said, what do you film with? He told me, and that's what we bought.
Sure.
I bought it because Mark Kenyon used it.
I'm kind of seeing a lot of fanboy love over there.
Did he touch your
They're gonna make fun of
camera?
me because I'm a fanboy of Mark Kenyon and Steve Rinella. I'm like the big.
Oh my God.
They're like, hey, anytime something
chubby?
happens, they're like, hey, Steve Rinella's in. Check this out, your boy is whatever. I'm like,
When we first started Times Up Outdoors, Nico and I were just sick of Mark Kenyon. I mean, not because he's a bad guy, but because Scott's like, did you hear Mark Kenyon's latest podcast? Dude, he was talking about the CWD thing in Michigan. He's like, what do you think about that? I'm like, I don't know, man. Like,
I like Mark Kenyon.
Jeez, oh Pete.
I'll be honest, we started this podcast because of him. So
Sure.
So
This
as
is
I
true.
talk shit about the tumblers that he never sent us, I owe a lot to Mark Kenyon for what he inspired me to do. As you probably owe Tethrd because he inspired you to jump into this whole saddle thing. And were you
Yeah.
saddle hunting before you?
Well, I was listening to that podcast. Like, I was riding a lawnmower with headphones in, and I literally pulled over and I looked up on the forum real quick, and I was like, what's the cheapest way? And I did a little search, and right there on the lawnmower, I ordered a sit drag and a rock climbing harness. And then literally that was all I thought about it. And a couple weeks later, it showed up. And then it was mid-September. I was trying it out, and then I was in a saddle. The next year, I got a Mantis.
He was talking about a saddle on the podcast.
What's that?
He was talking about
Yeah,
the saddle.
it was with podcast with you and Mark Kenyon
Go figure.
on Wired to Hunt. Yep.
That's cool.
Did a couple
So
with him.
yeah, so and then I got into a Mantis the next year, and
So you're essentially literally here today because of something that you listened to him talking
yeah,
about, and he didn't
John
even know
Eberhart
about.
easily.
No, I didn't know.
There you go.
Yeah,
See, that's the hunting community, bringing people together. They
Yeah.
would it ever, possibly ever.
yeah. So I just was I got into Mantis, and then I just started annoying guys like Ernie and Greg and all the other guys, saying if you ever need any help, and finally they took me up on it. So.
That's cool, man.
And it doesn't hurt that you're not shy.
No, that's
You
what you gotta
jump
do.
right in there.
I used to be the shy kid hiding behind my mom in the grocery store.
Really?
Yeah.
Does your mom love you too?
She's not listening to this, so.
Well, and what people don't know is Zach used to be a tournament archer.
He what?
He was a tournament archer.
I didn't know
and
that.
is actually very successful at it. He gave it up,
Really?
but he used to be awesome at it.
Wow, no shit.
Where did you?
He used to be a bull
who'd you
rider
shoot
too.
for?
Yeah, I heard about bull riding. He told me a little bit
And
about
he's
that
an elk
today.
guide.
Yeah, he told me about that today too. He's showing me.
Yeah, I
Wait,
mean,
you're a bull rider?
Yeah.
Nice.
so if there are any single women out there, we
He's
Under
single.
5'2".
22.
The catch.
And he was a-
22.
There's a catch. I'm 5'6".
With heels
Are
on.
You were a
5'6".
ski instructor
I'm
too.
5'5" and a half on a good day.
5'5.5".
Depends on what type of shoes you're wearing. It's alright. Hey, I'm a short guy too. I'm 5'7" ish.
Aren't you also a ski instructor or something like
Yeah.
that? Yeah.
I
What don't
ski
you do?
instruct. That's my
I'll take
winter
another.
gig. So.
Okay.
Zach,
Cool.
Zach
That's
used to be a bull rider. I used to ride barrel racers. Does that count?
Well, we want to hear about it. We want to talk to you. Now,
Did you
now, how did you hook up with
you
these
used to
guys?
ride bulls, but they were a different
Say your
kind
name
of bull.
again. Tell
No, I
everybody.
used to ride barrel racers.
Oh yeah.
We got another Army vet.
Yeah,
and,
sweet.
And today, my fiance's she's in the Army. She's active duty, and I have to listen to her talk all day long. And she says all these letters and like acronyms and stuff, and I'm like, what? I don't even really know what she does. Because she says like these code words, and then I listen to him talk today, and I'm like, yeah, they're those code words again. I have no idea what they're talking about, but they do. So let's hear.
Take it
How
away.
did you get into?
How did
this
you
whole
get
thing?
linked into this whole mess?
Well, I got into saddle hunting because I got medically retired from the Army. I've had multiple spine surgeries, and hunting out of a tree stand is next to impossible for me. It's way too painful, and I spent a lot of years spending a lot of money on stands looking for one that was comfortable for me, and it just didn't work. And probably 4 or 5 years ago, I was here at Outdoor Rama, and I saw John swinging around on a tree in a saddle. I was like, what the hell is this guy doing? So I walked up, and we started talking, and he said, you got to try it out. So I ended up trying it out, and long story short, I can sit dark to dark in a saddle without pain, and I'll never sit in a tree stand again. And then I met Ernie. With him and John were at Outdoor Rama a couple years ago, and we got talking, and then I ended up helping Ernie out at Deer Fest last year, and that's how we got hooked up together, and it's been love ever since.
This podcast has a theme of bringing people together and loving relationships.
We're all in love. We love each other.
Well, and for those of you who've never met Chad, he is the biggest teddy bear on the
if you
planet.
can't, if you're not watching, he's huge.
Dude,
He's a big guy.
Dude, I saw this guy yesterday when we were having beers right over here. I'm like,
The guy's huge.
that guy's a fucking mammoth.
Well, we were supposed to film a little video for Carbon TV today, and I said let's just use we'll use that guy over. I said no, never mind. I don't want to look like a tiny person, so we're like we'll just find random people from the crowd to do this video because I don't want to look like a tiny person.
If anybody's ever watched Greg Gutfeld on Late at Night on the Fox, Chad kind of reminds me of Tyrus.
Okay.
Just a big guy.
He's a big guy.
A mammoth, but he's sweet as a button.
That's cool, man. That's like like all of us here. We've all been brought together by hunting, saddle hunting, but it doesn't. People might be listening to this and be like, "What is this? A giant ad for saddle hunting?"
Yes.
I mean, it kind of is.
Yeah, absolutely.
Technically, but we're all just talking about.
But it's truth.
something that we have. Yeah, I mean, it's a good.
At the end of the day, I mean, saddle hunting or not, either way, you were still out in the woods. For some reason, you ended up in a saddle. You ended up with either John or Ernie, and it started in the woods of you hunting. You couldn't hunt because you got all these spine surgeries, and I mean, it was painful for you to hunt. So now you're sitting in a saddle.
Yeah, saddle or not.
Yeah, it's all brought together by the outdoors.
I got to make a comment real
Let's hear
quick.
it.
Got to.
Chad is a testament because we get people all the time. I'm sure Ernie does and Greg does on Facebook. Well, I've got back issues, lower back issues. I don't know if I can hunt in a saddle. And trust me, hunting out of a saddle is way more comfortable than hunting out of a tree stand, even if you have back issues. Because I talk a lot of guys with back issues that are hunting out of saddles now, just like Chad. And they can sit in it very comfortably because you can adjust how you sit at any moment. I mean, it's just totally, you have all that adjustment, whereas in a seat, you're sitting in the same exact position the whole time.
Well, and to piggyback off of that, John likes the word piggyback.
I love that word.
So, I personally, the biggest question I get is two things: price and comfortability. And I tell them, I've sat
comfortability a word?
No,
it's not. It's definitely
That sounds
not.
like a George Bush.
It's a new word.
That's a Bush word.
What was Bush's word?
I was thinking the same thing.
Strategery.
Strategery.
It's also strategery.
I'm thinking the same thing. I'm like,
Thanks for calling me out, asshole.
I think you meant comfort, but I don't. I'm not really sure.
Strategery. It's comfortability. Whatever. Yeah, Jameson. Maybe one too many. I drank a fifth of Crown today as well, so that
comfort
helps.
and mobility.
Comfort and mobility.
Okay, there you go.
The comfort of this. I mean, I've sat like he said, dark to dark. I mean, I'm not a big guy, and I have had a lot of talked to a lot of bigger guys that they're like, well, I'm a big guy. I'm like, I know big guys who sit in a saddle dark to dark. The adjustment. You can make so many different adjustments with the saddle, and with your new one, from what I've learned yesterday, there's more. And I sit in the saddle, and I'll move around throughout the day. I change my position. You can sit all day. They're comfortable. It's like you're kind of sitting in a hammock to me. That's how I felt about it. And then the price point of it, we've talked about it a million times today. If you hunt out of a tree stand, and let's say you hunt private land, and you got 100 acres, you got your spot set up, Okay, I'm going to hunt here, here, and here. I'm going to sit and I'm going to look over there. I'm going to say, I need a tree stand over there. Next year, I'm going to Cabela's and I'm going to buy another tree stand. I'm going to set it up over there. And then next year, I'm going to see, I need a tree stand over there. I'm going to go to Cabela's. I'm going to buy another tree stand over there. You spend $200 now. I bought a tree stand every year. Almost every year. I was always buying a new tree stand.
Yep.
I hunt 160 acres with my stepdad and my brothers, and they hunt out of ladder stands. And now this year they were saying, oh, we should put a tree stand over in that back corner on the southwest side. I said, yeah, you should. Well, you want to go in on it? No. Why not? Well, I have a saddle. I don't need to go in on a ladder stand. I don't ever need to buy another stand ever. And because I have the saddle, I can pretty much sit wherever I want.
The thing, coming from a guy that doesn't have a saddle yet, I guarantee you by Sunday I'm buying a saddle. Guaranteed.
They'll be sold out.
Well, these guys went to Missouri and they hauled.
That's the problem. When we went to
If
Missouri,
he has one left.
Yeah,
Did
right.
you see we
better
sold
say
out
so.
this afternoon around 4 o'clock?
What'd you say? You had 7 left?
I guess
I
I'll
think
be
there's
on
7 left.
I'll be on back order, and maybe my wife will give you a bad email about like you ruined his birthday.
Adam's mom can get a hold of him.
Yeah. She still got the number saved in her
Look for
phone
a dead spot.
under those motherfuckers.
If anybody's having a problem getting their tethered saddle, just have Adam's mom call her. Call him.
I'm telling you, that is the highlight of my day.
I love that we made that connection on this podcast.
My problem was when I went to Missouri, we were hunting public land up there, and Nico and I walked 2.5 miles one way just to get out to where we wanted to hunt. We were sitting out on a campsite or just land with a tent, and we'd walk, and it was 110 degrees sometimes. And we were walking out there, and both Nico and I both don't have saddles yet. And so I'm hauling this climber in and out of here. Every time I sit down, I go and look, and I see, oh, man, this is a better spot to set up next time. By the end of the 3rd or 4th day, I just started leaving my climber in the woods. I'm like, there's no way I'm walking in and out with this damn thing. But then I would get halfway out there and be like, oh, this is brand new deer sign. And I'd look over and I'd see an oak tree. I'm like, well, shit, I'd like to sit right here. But now it's 5 in the morning, and my climber is 1.5 miles that way. I'm like, man, I would wear this thing in and out of here.
Yeah.
And just
That's what I did.
Yeah,
I
get a
hunted
saddle.
New sign.
I need to get a saddle.
My property's a mile deep and a quarter mile wide, and to get to different places, sometimes I have 1.5 mile walk just because I got to go around stuff. Sure. And I hunt a new sign like all season. Some days I would I don't know where I'm gonna sit today. I'm literally just gonna walk out there, and I'm gonna look for new sign, and I'm gonna hunt it.
You understand John Eberhart's cringing right now. Are you saying that? Yeah. I was like, oh, yeah, you're going to hunt new sign? Wow, what a loser. You should have scouted in February.
Yeah,
So much for that
true.
No,
Right.
my biggest buck I've ever killed was a freelance hunt. So.
Yeah, right. The one I went out, I said, I'm going to hunt new sign. I get out there, I'm walking this creek edge, and I find a big scrape that I know wasn't there before. And I'm like, oh, that's interesting. And there's a tree, a perfect tree to sit in a saddle. I should sit in that tree. I'm like, I'm going to walk 50 more yards and see if there's anything else that way. So I start walking, and on the other side of the creek, here comes this big-ass 8-point running, and it's bow season, and it had snowed, it was cold as shit, and I'm like, holy shit, I got down on my knees, and I have video of it. I had my GoPro mounted in my bow, and that's all I could do was videotape it, and it stopped, turned around, and stared at me, and I'm like, I just sat there. I'm like, shit. I had walked 20 yards from the tree that I originally talked about to myself sitting in, and I didn't sit in. If I would have just sat up in that tree, I probably would have had a great opportunity to kill that deer. But I didn't.
We went to Missouri this year, and I'll add a piece of equipment to your Missouri hunting list that is just invaluable, is we took e-bikes.
What's that?
We took e-bikes.
Yeah.
And throw your saddle and your e-bike, and we were doing that same 2.5 miles, but we were doing it on bikes.
Oh, man.
And so we would ride the bikes down these old logging roads. We'd park here, and then it was an all, walk-in or bicycle access. And we were going in 2.5, 3 miles to these food plots that were way back in the middle of nowhere.
That's awesome.
And just deer everywhere.
Yeah.
And it was the same thing. Went in, found a place, set up, hunt.
And see, that's the one thing, because you were all in public too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and so for whatever reason, Missouri, I don't know if anybody else has been there, They
Yeah,
manage the shit out of their public
Oh,
land.
hell yeah.
Dude, there are food plots in Missouri
Nope, I passed
in the
on
middle
that
of
little
these
one,
random just public land parcels that are out there. And it's just like we walked 2.5 miles back, scrubbing through trees, walking through swamp, doing all this crap. And then all of a sudden we roll up on a cornfield. I'm like, what the hell? Undercut with clover. I'm like, what is this?
I didn't know anything
They
about
make
that.
maps
Yeah.
where you can just look at that kind of stuff on your phone.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah.
Is
and
that
then-
on
yeah,
it? One of those?
Base map. Yeah.
Oh,
Base
ba-
map?
oh.
They have that? That's pretty cool.
No,
Yeah.
and
It's
it
like
was
you
great.
can just like zoom in and it shows
No
all
shit.
that, public or not.
They didn't know that.
I
I know
did not
because
know that.
Nico scouted at the firehouse on his on X, and I don't think it's on X. He was looking. He's like, I think this is a good area to go.
And we did. We walked right back there, and there's like a 100-acre cornfield.
That's awesome.
And then
Yeah.
it
I
steps
wish
down
Michigan
into
would do
clover,
that.
and then there's like turnips. I'm like,
I wish Michigan would do a lot of things.
Yeah, and it was
We've got
awesome.
some of
I
those
mean,
huts, but it's like
we had
half
7
mile.
guys. We hunted a week, and 5 out of 7 of us killed an 8-point or better. Greg killed a 140-inch 10-point. I mean, there was just deer everywhere. But we were 3 miles from the parking lot, and we rode the e-bikes in. And the best part was, and this is just, you can't discount this, when we did kill a deer, we put a trailer on the e-bike, and we put a deer on the trailer, and we rode it right back out.
Dude, that's amazing.
I didn't even think about that. I
I'll
was
be
like, when I'm
honest.
going to shoot this.
I've
What's
thought
gonna
about
happen?
the e-bike thing. There's different brands that I've looked at.
Oh, man.
I have this weird mental thing that I like can't get over. I feel like walking makes me more. I'm like more of a hunter, but I know it's bullshit.
It makes you
It's
fat
just
and
a
sweaty. That's
stupid
what it makes
mental
you.
thing.
That is weird.
Sure.
It is, right? But
Drag
I'm like,
the deer.
all right, so if I ride an e-bike, I don't want to tell anybody I rode an e-bike. I want to act like I walked out there, but
Drag the deer out 3 miles,
right.
then see how much
Right,
of a
no,
hunter
I
you
know.
feel like.
It's such a bullshit thing to think that way.
well, I
But
can-
I don't know why.
You know
Say
what?
I-
I'm amazed at how many deer I see on my e-bike. Literally,
Well, yeah,
because
you're-
I'm covering a lot of ground. It's quiet, and all of a sudden I just look over and there'll be deer here and deer there. I did a city park hunt last year, and I think I saw 8 bucks in one afternoon just on my bike cruising the trails.
Wow.
Well, I was going to say, like, to piggyback off of that, like, how you
Piggyback.
don't want to tell somebody. There you go.
That's his word.
Yeah, you know, it's your podcast.
You
I'm
can
just
have
trying
it
to
now.
build
You're
content
gonna
for
take
you.
that to
You
the
know,
Chronicles.
piggyback. But you know, for the e-bike thing and that being like sweaty and walking in that way. So when we were in Missouri, it was kind of like the same deal. There's a bunch of public land, all managed, whatever. But we went there and didn't pay attention to like the dates. We got there on the youth hunt for them, so it was like gun hunters everywhere,
Okay,
like
yeah, right,
everything.
right.
So everywhere we went, there was people, but we brought a canoe, and we went just right across this lake and got up on these finger ridges, and we got into that's where we found the bucks. While we were there, everywhere else we scouted, there was more human sign. But the last day that we were there, some guy that didn't have an e-bike walked 2.5 miles from the road from the other way, and he was very pissed when he saw us hanging in the trees. So, I mean, the canoe is kind of on the same thing, you know.
Yeah,
and
no,
I
it
feel
is.
like that's the CrossFit
And-
too. Like you need to, if you're not in a saddle, canoeing in, doing all that bullshit, you know, that's the cool thing to do, right? So I feel like
It
the
is,
opposite
it
of the
is.
e-bike is like, well, I was in a canoe,
Yeah,
but
right.
you know.
I hear you on that. Yeah, I don't know why I have that stupid. It's like a crux I got. Like I'm just like I can't.
I'm
get
with
over
John. That is stupid. That is
It
really
is dumb.
stupid.
It is dumb because
If I could drive my truck out there, I would. I would hunt out of my truck. I don't care.
well, we when I shot that one buck a couple years ago, he came out to help me track it, and we finally found blood, and then it was dark liver blood, so we let it go. We just went back to my camper, and when we went back out there, I'm like, why are we walking 1.5 miles? It was frozen ground. Let's drive your truck. Then I was like, well, we should have walked out here and drug a deer out. 'cause
That's
it
the
makes
manly thing to
It's
do.
a manly thing to do. Post it on Instagram, put a deer on our shoulders. I would never do
The
that.
body cavity over your
Yeah,
head.
right.
Yeah, blood all over your face.
I'll tell you, back when I owned just a shitbox truck, I would drive that through the woods, like
That's a very
over
Zach
bushes and
Brown thing to
everything,
do.
just to avoid dragging a deer out.
Oh yeah.
So I'll tell you, I told you a story. Told you a story about the deer that I was trying to kill all year last season.
Yeah. Yep.
There's a part of the story that I don't tell a whole lot of people, and I'll say it on the podcast.
So don't tell anybody.
The morning before gun opener. So it's the last night of bow. The spot I was sitting in is a mile walk, and I was sick and tired of making that walk. So my thought was I'm gonna ride my 4-wheeler halfway and then park it in the brush and walk the rest of the way. I think I told you I saw the deer in a flashlight.
Yeah.
I lied. I saw him in the headlights of my 4-wheeler. I was like, God damn.
Now we know we can't believe anything you say.
Right. So no, and I kicked myself for that. I'm like, and I had such a far walk that every now and then I would do that. I would ride the 4-wheeler out there. I'm like, they see farm equipment all the time and stuff like that. I don't really think it would affect anything, but that day it did. It might have ruined my chances of killing that deer. He got killed the next morning, but not by me.
Not by you.
Kid across the street
We want to
killed him.
clarify there, right, Ernie?
Kid across the street killed him. Nice 8-point.
I want to hear from the silent assassin over here. He didn't said a single word.
You're pretty quiet.
Is your microphone on? What's going on with you, bud?
Can you hear me?
No.
I want to hear more about Bowhunter Chronicles.
Yeah, we got to hear about this.
What do you want to know?
There you go.
Yeah, I can hear you.
How did
We're
you get
just a couple clowns from the west side of the state that.
Muskegon, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
How'd you get linked up?
Actually,
Yeah,
if you love Rinella,
Yeah.
you went to school with Rinella.
Shut up, really?
And Oh, God.
What was he like?
He's getting a chubby over here.
What did
take
he
your
smell
hand out of
like?
his pants, Chad.
I'm kidding. I'm totally kidding.
But and then, like right now, Em might live right across.
Why? Hold on 1 minute. We're gonna take a real quick intermission.
What's wrong?
I don't know.
He's got to take it complete.
His mic's off? Fix it.
Stand by. Stand by. Stand by, boys.
All right. Hey, give him that one.
Another mic. You got to start that one all over again now.
Did you hear the part where I asked what Rinella smelled like?
Yeah, I heard that.
Did you get the
I
part
heard
where
it.
he
I
has
don't
a
know if it's
chubby?
on tape.
Stand by. Try that. Hell no.
He said,
Is that cord plugged into the board?
Yeah, it's right here. Come on, bud. No.
Spit on it.
Yeah, spit on it.
Shoot, you blow on it. It's like a Nintendo.
Should we make him move his seat?
He can come sit down
Would
here.
that work better?
Yeah, you got to come sit over here, but you got to bring your mic.
I thought
a
that
mic
didn't
there.
work.
Mic will
I thought
travel.
it didn't work.
Yeah, it will travel. You got to
You
come
got
sit
to
over
unplug
here.
it. Otherwise, it won't.
So you
help.
think it's the cable?
I probably got a bad cord. That's my bad. It's my
This
bad,
is
boys.
a bush
I thought you were the
league
sound
podcast. I
expert.
can tell you this right now.
I told all these guys that you were an expert at sound, and
You
we're
did
looking
that.
pretty bush league.
Well,
I got my equipment in the car, guys. I'll be right back.
podcast that we did with Kenyon at ATA. We're doing it. We're going along. And all of a sudden, the batteries in the Zoom died, and we had
Oh,
nothing.
no.
Everything just gone.
Oh man. Well, it's funny because I told he's a fanatic about sound, and like he'll get mad. He'll be like, "This sounds like crap."
Can you hear me now?
Oh, yeah. There you
And I'm
go.
like, "Dude, listen."
Did you get the part where Zig had a chubby?
They're talking on the phone,
We
and
got
it sounds
that.
like shit. People still listen to it.
All right, so
It's the concept.
Silent Assassin, here we go.
So he
Yeah.
was talking about Rinella earlier.
Yeah,
and his
yeah,
chubby.
he
And I went to
with
school with him. He was a grade above me, and he was really good friends with my cousin Jeff. But
Oh shit.
like, I used to play hockey in high school, and we'd go up and play on the lakes. And I remember like one night we were up there and we had a glow-in-the-dark puck, and we're out playing. Then we ended up going back to Rinella's house, and we're hanging out in his basement. And if you listen to his podcast, you hear him talk about how they used to brew their own beer.
Yeah.
I remember walking into his basement, and he had this one of them big old ceramic crocks that like people make sauerkraut and stuff.
Yeah.
And there's this shit floating in. Like, what the hell is that? He's like, oh, we make our own beer. It's like, I mean, those guys were making their own beer before it was cool. You
Yeah,
know what I
right.
mean?
Yeah, that was way before it was cool.
They were making it because it was cheaper.
Yeah,
right.
they're making it because, well, like back then, like their dad was like, "Hey, you guys can make it. If you make it, you can drink it. It's
Yeah.
all right." You know, it's like,
People make it now so they can post a picture on Instagram.
Well, they didn't have deer heads to wrap in foil and bury in coals at that point. So.
Yeah, right.
So how did you link up with the Chronicles?
So he's the freaking genius behind the whole thing. Like, I am just like the Zig of the podcast. I'm the outlandish face, the marketer, all the stuff. He's the smart genius guy of the whole thing. So
he's giving me too much credit. I like to. I've always worked on my own bows, and my dad's like I was telling him earlier, like our local pro shop. My dad used to paint all the bows back before bows were painted. I mean, you buy a new bow and it was all shiny, and so then my dad would paint all the bows. Back then it was called Angler Archer, our little pro shop, and so. And my dad shot at the Bowman's Club, and he did a lot of target shooting, and my uncle as well. So he married into my family.
Oh.
Yeah.
So Adam,
Oh, okay.
Adam married my cousin Casey.
So this is a have-to deal.
Yeah. Well, and so what happens, like,
my wife's dad is fucking Grizzly Adams. Like, I walked into Ace Ventura's room of death, and I was like, "So do you hunt?" And he's like, "Yeah." I'm like, "Did you kill all these?" He said, "Yeah." I said, "With a bow or gun?" He goes, "Mostly a bow." He says, "Do you hunt?" I said, "Yeah, we got 240 acres in the UP." He says, "Welcome to the family." That's day one.
that was the first night.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so that's how. So our podcast started. He would come over and hang out in the garage. I'd be working on a bow or doing something, and he's like, "What about this?" or "What about that?" And we just end up talking for hours. And finally, he's like, "Do you want to start a podcast? Because we can just record the shit that we're talking about." And I'm like, well, "All right." So.
And you guys you guys blew up.
You want to hear something strange?
Yeah, I want to
When
hear
I
it.
worked at Jay's in the 70s, I can remember bows coming in that were painted that your dad painted.
Oh, no shit.
Yes.
Holy shit.
Yes, because his dad used to put little silhouettes of deer and then paint over top so there was
Yeah.
a deer in the actual,
He would-
on the limbs.
I mean, slave labor, or what do you want to call it? I remember as a kid, he would give me like all the old outdoor magazines and an X-Acto knife, which razor sharp, and I would cut out all the deer heads. And
Then
I
he'd
don't know how many
use them
times I
in
cut
silhouettes
myself,
to paint.
And so he would have all the little silhouettes. So he'd paint the bow flat black,
Yeah.
and then he'd go and put the deer head up there and spray it with gray or green or whatever the guys wanted. And he had some little tree bark stencils too.
That's cool.
And so there's still some of them hanging around. I see them every once in a while.
So you guys started how long you been doing the podcast?
About 2 years now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you guys are saddle hunters as well?
So
We are now.
yeah,
Tell
I
everybody.
mean, thanks to my mom.
You let
But
You
No,
guys tell
so-
everybody has to know.
no. So to be honest with you, like, first of all, I told you, like, I was like, "Yeah, Walter, you're crazy." Like, I'm not,
right,
you know.
right.
So then I was like,
In all honesty, Walter is crazy.
well, yeah. I mean, I talk to him just about every day, but
He was one of the ones that posed in a Speedo
oh
for
yeah,
our
this
contest
says he
that
loves
year,
Ernie.
so-
Wow.
The whole thing.
across his chest.
I don't
Yeah.
need to see that.
And he
I don't
looks like
think- I don't even
Gimli
know what he
from
looks
Lord of the
like.
Rings.
My dog's name is Walter. So I don't
Yeah, I
know.
love that.
My real name is Walter.
That about lines up right.
So, like, you guys maybe see this, maybe you don't, and like what you're doing, but it's like to have like an honest conversation, or people are going to ask you questions rather than say, "I think," or "Yeah, it looks," whatever. Like, you have to try it out, and
Right.
so you can have firsthand experience. So,
Right.
I get my saddle and I start using it, and John is like, "It's the stupidest thing
Yeah. I
I've
was
ever
like,
seen."
What the hell are you doing with that thing?
Yeah.
He's hanging on the tree in his yard. I'm like, and I've read, I have your book, I have John's books, and I've read it, and it's like, I'm like, yeah, I just like my tree stands, We've hunted out of climbers, lock-ons, everything.
Yeah, right.
And then, so Adam got it, and I was like, yeah, you can have your little swingy toy thing, That's,
Gays.
yeah. And so, but then, so this year, I'm like Chad. I've had 4 back surgeries. So I've had, and matter of fact, this last year, we were supposed to go. Adam and I had a trip planned to go out to South Dakota antelope hunting, and we had to cancel because I couldn't walk.
Oh, no shit.
I was down for almost 5 weeks.
Wow.
And so, like,
We
I
have
ended
another
up.
test for the saddle.
Big
Yeah,
time.
yeah. So
it really is.
And
It
John's a
really is.
big guy. I mean, like,
It's huge.
yeah, I'm
Yeah.
6'3", 235.
Yeah, you're a
yeah.
big dude. What do you play in hockey? You still play?
I can't
puck?
play no more.
No.
No.
How did you know he played hockey? Because of his hair?
no, he was
Oh, I
talking
used
about
to
it
play
with
in the-
Rinella.
as a kid. With
Oh, okay.
Rinella
Keep
and
up.
guys.
This is your podcast,
Listen,
man.
you're
That's why you need the
You're
headphones.
right. You did say you play hockey.
Yeah, yeah. I played all through high school. And
We're all
that.
here,
All he heard
Scott.
was Rinella.
I mean, I
and
just
he-
seen your hair flow. You know, you got
What
the little
happened? I
flows
blacked
in the
out.
back. It's
Well,
a hockey player thing.
Yeah.
He's like Rinella. What? Oh,
What?
Yeah.
Oh.
I blacked
out.
out. He Forrest Gumped it over it.
Gosh darn it.
So finish your story.
Yeah,
on
yeah.
your
So
back.
with my back, I it was just too much, and I ended up. I didn't get to hunt the first few weeks of bow season here. I was out in Maine on a color tour, so with my wife for our anniversary. But
Oh,
so I got back.
What the hell is a color tour?
Isn't that lovely?
Yeah.
Who
Actually,
gets married at the
What is a color
heart
tour?
of
Do I
bow
want to do
season?
that?
Looking at the changing color of the leaves.
look at the
Oh, yeah,
leaves?
okay,
The leaves.
Yeah, the leaves.
Yeah.
You had
In
to
the fall,
leave
when
the
the-
state
when the
to
trees
go
turn
look at
color.
things?
You realize they have
There are
one
trees
of those
in
up
Michigan.
Petoskey?
Yeah, we've done that many times. But we went up and found moose and everything.
We'll
It
make
was
fun of
pretty-
you later for it.
Yeah, I gotta admit, color tour brought a lot of different images to
Yeah,
my head.
yeah.
It had nothing to do with leaves.
Nothing to do with
I pictured some.
Yeah, we had to clear that out.
I had no idea what was going on there, but
we
cool.
go there.
Cool.
No.
I'm good right now. Thanks.
This is
go
our
on.
great waitress.
So after the color tour.
So after the color tour,
So I get back, and the last 2 years I'd been carrying. We'd agreed like we're gonna start filming our hunts, for the podcast. So, I get all the like hand me down. Adam buys all this stuff. He's like, okay, I don't want this here. You take it. So I got like the Muddy Pro camera arm, which weighs like I swear 8 pounds.
I got that. I got the same
and
one.
I got.
Yeah.
But what's really funny, if you took a picture of my camera, it's the little tiny Sony
Little Vixia.
handy cam. Like,
Yeah, oh, yeah.
I could put it on the straw probably, but I got it on this mega arm. Like, I could probably stand on the arm, And so, and then I had my like XOP stand and sticks.
it's me.
And I weighed my pack. It was 62 pounds.
Jesus.
And I hunted like 2 times, and with it,
Well, you need a smaller camera.
yeah.
Clearly.
like that camera.
Oh, it's Chip Douglas.
So
Either
got
way,
to the
that,
point-
that you're screwing your back up on
Well,
your
so,
way.
that was,
right?
so
yeah.
I ended up like there was like 3 hunts where I didn't even get in a stand. I'm like, I'm just gonna hunt on the ground because my back was killing me. Then I ended up doing an old Dan Infault and going out like a mile out into the swamp and got out there, and it took me like 2 hours to get out in the shit. And I was like, I wanted to go farther, but I'm like, if I go any farther, I'm never gonna get out of here. So I got out there, got my stand, it started raining, got down, and I was literally gonna just leave the stand in the woods. I'm like, no one's ever gonna come out here and find this. I'm never coming back to this spot, but I don't give a shit because it was so heavy. I was like, and I end up like, I'm looking on OnX, like, all right, I'm just gonna cut across this. Wrong. It took me 2.5 hours to go like 2/3 of a mile. Even though I cut the distance, I almost lost my boots. I mean, it was like
my
one
gosh.
point, I'm like,
You're not
just
having a
gonna,
good day.
Terrible
I'm like,
day.
just gonna lay there,
Terrible.
and like after that, I
Curl
couldn't,
up in a ball.
like
and
for
feet up
like
in the-
2 or 3 days, I couldn't walk.
Cry for
And
somebody to come help me.
I told Adam, I'm like, dude, I gotta do something different. I said, I'm not gonna be able to hunt. I might not even get out of the woods if I screw something up. And so he's like, well, here, try my Manus. So I went out. I'm like, I gotta have a frickin' saddle.
Yeah, right.
And he's like, well, we couldn't get it there. You guys were like sold out. Couldn't get one.
Last
so,
year was tough.
yeah. So I ended up
It's a good thing for you.
getting a trophy line. And
Oh, holy shit. We'll edit that out. Don't worry.
Come on, they're a viable saddle too.
And so, I mean, I hunted out of it, and it worked. I mean, it was way better than carrying my stand and all that.
Yeah, it doubles as an ATV cover too.
Yeah. But
It's
definitely,
big, no
it was
doubt.
warm. Yeah, I could, like I'm a big guy,
Are
like
they big?
Superman cape.
Yeah, they're
I've never
very
seen-
deep,
Okay.
very deep seats.
But definitely. But I'm like, we definitely I gotta get into the tethered. So.
But what's funny is, so we did a podcast like outlining like our gear that we use for the season and everything like that. And so we told Ernie about this already. But like as they were developing the Phantom, like we did a very shitty video podcast and the lighting was so poor I couldn't use the video of it. Yeah. But like so on that we were going through the pros and the cons of the different saddles that we had and everything like that. And so we had the Mantis and the Trophy line side by side, and we said if you just did this and you did that, and you did this and you did that, you did this and you did that, that would be like what exactly we were looking for. And this is before ATA. We show up at ATA, and the Phantom is everything that John said,
no shit.
like right to a T, like the shape of it, everything right down to like. So that's one of the interesting things about like, with saddles and the new Phantom that's out. So everybody that was involved in the process has been saddle hunting for years and years and years, and it's all those little intricacies and all the things that they would change or whatever you would want to do, they put into that. And then so for like our platform and what we do, going to ATA and seeing the saddle, up to that point, most of the saddle hunters are like you or like John or like myself. I mean, granted, we've had the opportunity to sit in a couple of different saddles, but for the most part, this giant boom, everybody's only sat in one, and it's one of these things where, like you said, you only buy one and you don't have to buy one. So
Yeah.
you take what you can get, and now it's the greatest thing ever.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
these saddles, these changes, everything that's come about are from people that have done it for decades. You know, so once you've sat in one and you've spent the time, all of the little things, the nuances, those are the things that you're really looking at and going, well, holy shit, that's what I would have done if if I could change one thing, that's what I would do.
Yeah.
And so there is not a ton of people out there I told the guy today at the show, I said, the kid didn't want to sit in it. He's like, yeah, I heard about these or, whatever. I said, there's probably less than 10,000 people in the world that's ever sat in this thing. All the ones that they're sold out online, and the ones that are in this building and are in North Carolina are the only ones that are for sale right now. It'll be another week or so, and they'll have more in the store. But everybody that's, I guess, talking shit on social media and all this stuff, they've only sat in one saddle or whatever. Right. It's a booming thing, right?
I see that a lot. I really do, and we've always said, get in a saddle. I don't care what you buy.
You're right.
I'm trying to promote the sport.
You're right.
Saddle is a saddle, in the fact that a saddle will help you kill deer over a tree stand, right? Now, granted, I feel like my saddle's better, but that's my biased opinion. But I think you're right. I think a lot of people who maybe haven't sat in a saddle before buy one, and they're like, this is the greatest thing ever, so this must be the best saddle ever.
Right.
And I think the longer you use it, or the more variety you've experienced, you start to look for those intricate little details. And those are the details that we tried to put into our newest offering. Right.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's one of the things that really drew me to buying your product. When I talked to you last year, I knew about saddle hunting, but Tethrd was just something that I knew. I had Googled it. There was other companies like Arrow Hunter or something like that.
New Tribe.
Yeah.
New Tribe.
But the way you talked about just saddle hunting, and you even said to me you didn't care what you buy. You just, obviously you have a product to sell. You want people to buy your product, but you want people to get into the whole thing. And then talking to you here in this bar, talking about saddle hunting. You told me that story about your buddy who was trying to kill a buck and couldn't kill the buck because the doe kept coming out, and she would look right up in his tree
Oh,
stand.
yeah. Yep.
And then
Yep.
you went in and you killed the doe.
Want me to tell that story real
Yeah,
quick?
let's hear it. Yeah,
Oh,
let's
yeah.
hear it. It's a good story.
I got a couple good stories. One's about a different guy. I'm going to tell the one about the guy that shot the antelope first. I had a good friend. His name's Eric Geider, and he's from Michigan. He's the Shimano rep in Michigan, and he was out antelope hunting in Arizona.
Okay.
And he was hunting at a little water hole and had a little windmill on the other side of the pond, and he was hunting out of a pop-up blind. Well, there was like 8 or 10 antelope that were coming in every day, and they were actually coming in by the windmill, and then they were coming into the opposite side of the pond that his pop-up blind was on. And he could shoot the does, but the antelope buck, stayed back by the windmill, out of range, about 50 yards, whereas the other side of the pond was about 30 yards. So that happened 2 evenings in a row. So the next evening, this was ingenious. He took a saddle with him. He actually hooked up on the windmill. He climbed up the corner angle of the windmill and hooked up on the windmill. And the windmill's going around, so it's making noise, and the antelope never look up.
Yeah.
And the same exact thing happened. The does came in, and they drank water, and that buck stopped 10 yards from him, and he shot him from the windmill.
Holy
That's
shit.
fantastic.
That's the best saddle story ever, in my opinion.
That's incredible.
Now, mine was, there was a good friend of mine, and he was hunting on public land, and this is in Michigan, after gun season in December, snow on the ground. And back then, baiting was legal, and he was a bait hunter, which I am not. And he had this big doe. She'd come out of the swamp, which was like maybe 15 yards from his bait, and she would stand on the edge of the swamp, and she would look into the tree that he had a tree stand in. He was in a big oak tree. And every time she'd come out, she'd stop on the edge of the swamp before she'd actually expose herself outside, and she would look at that stand. And if he was in it, she would obviously see him, pick him, and then she would start blowing and snorting for 2 to 3 minutes, and then she'd turn around and run back in the swamp, and then he wouldn't see anything the rest of the night. So he told me that, and I said, well, would you like me to kill that deer? And he said, well, how are you going to kill it? And this guy's a good hunter. He shot a lot of deer. And I said, do you want it dead or not? And he said, yeah, I want her out of there because there's a couple good bucks still left after gun season. So I went out, and he showed me where it was. I got up in the tree, and I got about 10 feet above where his tree stand was, and I hung on the back side of the tree. So now I've got the oak as a blocker between the actual oak trunk, blocking me from where that doe was going to come out and from the bait pile.
And you were higher, too.
Yeah.
And I was 10 feet above his stand.
Yeah.
Yes. And that doe did exactly what he said. She came out right onto the edge of the swamp. She stared at that tree stand. She'd look to the left, she'd look to the right, she'd look back up at that tree stand. Finally, after about 2 to 3 minutes, she moseyed over to that bait pile, and she faced the tree. When she was eating these beets, she was facing the tree, so she could still see that tree out of her peripheral vision when her head was lowered. And finally, after, I don't know, probably 10 or 15 minutes, she finally turned where she was quartering to me, almost broadside, but slightly quartering to me, and I just leaned to the side of the tree and shot her. And that was the end of that story. And I thought that was a really cool story.
So
he
I have
was
a
like,
question.
no way I
It
could
is
kill
a
that
really
deer.
cool story.
I have a question. Was that the only tree in the area? Because I've heard that same situation where you're getting busted in this tree stand. And instead of getting in a saddle on the back and going up higher, a guy will move 3 trees over.
That was the only tree.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep.
So-
That was a big tree where he had a lot. It was a big tree. He had a lot of cover for that particular tree stand, and everything else around it was short and small.
Yeah.
That-
And you got a smart old doe.
It was a smart old, bitch. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was probably a 5 or
That-
6 year old doe.
That's been my go-to story when people talk to me about saddle hunting. I told that story. You told us that here last year. And that was kind of the story that sold me on it. Because kind of like, why is saddle hunting setting me apart from tree stand hunting, regular? To me, that was like the main thing that stood out to
a
me.
big
Is
deal.
like, you put yourself between the tree. or you put the tree between you and the animal.
When you're hunting at a destination location where deer, like at an apple tree or a white oak tree, where multiple deer are going to come in and feed, and they're going to be there for 10, 15, 20 minutes, yeah, with a tree stand, you have to have your stand kicked off to the side.
Yep.
So when the foliage is down, they're looking around and their ears are twitching around, and you're likely to get picked when the foliage is down, where if you're on the total back side of the tree, you're just peeking around the tree, and when an opportunity comes, you just slightly swing to the side, take your shot.
Yeah.
So my first year in a saddle was this last year. And the reason I got the saddle was because of these stories. I didn't listen to any of them, apparently, because every time I set up my platform and where I was standing, I would set it up the same way in my mind, I was so stuck on tree stand hunting. And so I would put the platform where I would put a tree stand. And I would get all set up, and I'd be sitting there, I'd be like, oh my God.
That's the wrong hand.
On the
It's
wrong
the
side of the
wrong
tree.
side of the tree. Because I'm so stuck on that. And it had the first buck that came out, it was my target buck. Early bow season. Came right out, looked right up at me. Now, he did present me with a really good shot opportunity.
What happened, Scott?
I hit a tree branch with my arrow. I have video of the whole thing, and there's clear video of the arrow hitting the tree branch and going straight down. So,
Well, that's
yeah,
the beauty of saddle hunting, really, because I went into a spot and I killed my first deer out of the saddle this year. And I did the same thing, although I was just stupid and I didn't realize that the deer were coming back from the other way. They told me, okay, go in the spot, hunt here. I got to the area, found all the sign, and I'm sitting there facing the entirely wrong way. I turn around, and there's a buck standing there, and I shot him at about, on the clock, at about 6:30.
Okay.
Right there behind me. So if I had have been, on the other side of the tree, I probably missed a lot of deer going by me because I was facing the entirely wrong way. But that was just out of my own stupidity. But you can make that shot.
Yeah, it's funny though. It's funny the amount of times I set up in my tree, or a tree, and in the beginning of the early bow season, I literally would think about the story he told me, and think, "You're an idiot. You're set up completely wrong. Why are you doing this? You keep doing this over and over again."
Like, why are you even in a saddle
Yeah,
at
and
that point?
throughout the season, I figured it out, and I started to set up the right way.
You're a slow learner. In
Yeah,
other
it
words.
was a learning curve for me.
Well, and Scott, I'll tell you this. After a while, I can't look at a tree and figure out how to put a regular tree stand in it. Like,
I can't wait till I get to that point.
I'm always like, yeah, it's like, but if I had to put a regular tree stand in a tree, it'd be all backwards.
Which
I know
way
it
am I
would.
supposed to put this tree stand again?
Yeah.
So Ernie, I've got a question for you. So and John, feel free to chime in. But so as like the evolution of a saddle hunter, and John for my entire lifetime, because I was born in '81. But
Wait a minute, you were born in the 80s?
yeah.
I was born in '85.
So
Are you guys old?
so
Born in 51.
so
What were you born
In-
in? 2005?
2006.
97.
Anyway,
Oh, let the man talk.
in hunting with other people and that sort of setup, like, so I was invited to hunt a piece of private. I was like, I help you out, and we can do this. And he's trying to help. He's trying to do this food plot stuff and all this stuff, and he knows where the deer are and where they're coming. And I'm like, why don't we just kill the deer and not dick around with all this food plot stuff? And he's like, well, there's no trees. And I'm like, well, I'm gonna hunt that little tree right there like, is there a big explanation process to like the way that you set up? Because right now, same thing is like, I just look at a tree. I'm like, oh, there's a big cedar that's back cover, and there's a little tree in front of it. Like, I'll just get right there. I don't have to get up super high, And do you find yourself having to explain things to people, or is everybody that's in your lives saddle hunters? While you're hunting?
No, I mean, I'll be quite honest with you. Most of my friends are retarded, and they look at me. They look at me in my saddle, and they will not try it. Most of the people that I hunt with in Minnesota and Wisconsin are your traditional set up a ladder stand, and I'm gonna hunt it morning and night for 7 days straight, and whether there's corn there or not corn or whatever. But it's just, I don't have I have a very, very small saddle hunting community in Minnesota.
Really?
And so, yeah, I mean, even after everything, even years and years ago when I was doing stupid stuff out of like my work saddle when I was a tree trimmer and all these things, up till now where they can kind of see like it really makes sense, they still will not try it. I'm not a good salesman, so.
But as far
Yes,
as
you
like
are.
the setups, are your setups like completely different? Like even
I don't
if
think so. I think, you have to learn to look from the back side of the tree instead of the front. But I'm still looking for back cover, like you said, a cedar tree behind me, some brush. I like to have a tree that, in an ideal situation, my favorite, by far all favorite tree is a big gnarly oak tree, because I can crawl around the big branches on the way up.
Yeah.
And set up, and I can set my stuff up there, and you disappear. You're leaning away from the tree, you're another branch. And you can always, well, not always, but the theory is, even with all those big branches underneath you that are moving right and left and whatever, you have opportunities between them. And I just really like the shape of a big oak tree. And the other beautiful thing about that tree is people don't generally hunt that tree.
Yeah.
So the animals aren't naturally looking at that tree for you to be in it. I don't think there's a secret to it. I mean, there's so much instructional about picking a tree to hunt out of. You want back cover, you want this. The only difference is I have a lot more trees available to me than I had before.
I want to say, John, with you're teaching these seminars and you have been for a long time, so you have to field a lot of questions on.
I field a lot of
talk so much
questions,
shit
and
about
I'll
you.
tell you what, when I'm doing these workshops, the first time I get in a tree, and I tell everybody, okay, I hunt a lot of destination areas. So I hunt at apple trees, oak trees, white oaks, red oaks, primary scrape areas, some place where there's a natural food source with good security cover around it. So as soon as I get to the first tree, which is an apple tree out in the woods, I tell everybody, okay, stand under these two apple trees as if you're deer, you're going to be feeding there. And then I'm going to get in this tree, and I climb the tree, and I hook up the saddle, which takes me about probably 30 seconds. I swing around the back side of the tree, and as soon as I swing around to the back side of the tree, a light bulb goes off in every one of their heads. They get it immediately. And I say, this is where I'm hunting. You can't see me. And anytime I set up in any tree, I always set up on the back side of the tree where I assume my shot's going to be. And keep in mind, with a saddle, you don't have to necessarily set up on the back side of the tree where you assume your shot's going to be, because you have the mobility to swing around and move around the tree at will. Right. You put steps around the tree. If you're using a platform, you put a couple steps around the back side, or else you just have a ring of steps. If a deer comes and it's a non-target, let's say a couple dozen fawns are coming through, and you don't want them to pick you, you just move around to the back side of the tree as the deer go by. So you always assume you're going to have your shots in a specific spot, so you try to set up in the tree where the tree is going to be a buffer for you. But you can always move around the tree. There's just so many advantages. Nobody's going to steal your stand. It's with you all the time. Nobody's going to hunt your stand when you're not there, because it's with you. It's a safety harness, so it doubles as your own climbing safety harness for putting in steps or sticks or whatever you're going to use. With a tree stand, when you're prepping trees, you have to have a safety harness with you also. So you're having to have an extra safety harness to prep your tree with. It's just safer than anything. Nobody's ever fell out of a saddle, as far as I know, and I've been following saddles for a long, long time. Tens of thousands of people have fell out of tree stands, so it's extremely safe. Again, you only have to own one for every tree you hunt. Every season, I probably go into the season with 40 trees prepped. I may only hunt 8 to 12 of them, depending on the sign that particular year. But all those trees, I can walk to any one of those trees and hunt at any moment. There's places where I will have 4 trees prepped within a 50-yard area, because every year when things change, if it's in an area where there's multiple oaks, maybe this year this red oak has acorns, and then the next year this white oak over here has acorns. So I'll have multiple locations in very small zones because things change. Crop rotations change where scrape areas are. Apple trees are biennial, so there's lots of times you set up at an apple tree if it's next to a cornfield, let's say. The years when the corn is standing and the apple tree has apples, that's a great place to hunt because you got security cover where a deer can bed in the standing corn, come out and eat some apples a couple feet away from the corn. So you got security cover, for the bucks to feel comfortable. So I prep a lot of locations, and I can get in any one of them at any moment. And it's pretty simple to carry around some sort of a freelance pack for getting up into a tree. And it's just really simple because you can either wear the saddle in with you if you're freelancing, or you can, if they're small enough and they weigh so little, you can put them in your backpack when you're walking in. And it's just super simple to do anything out of the saddle.
Well, I'll tell you, the biggest deer I saw this year couldn't pick me out. Mm-hmm. It was a giant buck in Minnesota, and he looked up and he kind of knew something was up, but couldn't quite figure it out. Stamped his foot a couple of times, and then decided it was okay because I was on the backside of the tree. Awesome. Walked past me at 15 yards. Yeah. Now, unfortunately, I didn't have a tag anymore, so I had to let him walk.
You're not getting that with a tree stand, rather ladder stand.
Yeah.
He was reading the Tethrd on your backpack.
Hang on.
Yeah, he was a fan.
He was like, oh, shit.
He's a fanboy.
He's like, oh, yeah, he's tagged out already. I'm good.
He follows on social.
So, I got a question. Something that I...
What the hell was he doing there without a tag?
Right. No shit.
What are you out there without a tag?
He's killing does.
Height. Well,
I'm 5'6".
No, yeah.
He's about $160, and he's single.
So my thought process, and it goes back to the whole me setting up on the wrong side of the tree because I'm so used to setting up ladder stands. Is I'm so used to setting up ladder stands, and they're all pretty much the same height. With the tree, with a saddle, do you guys, depending on where you're at in the cover and what's behind you and stuff, do you guys change where you're at height-wise, or are you all typically the same?
I change all the time. When I'm scouting during postseason, that's when I usually prep most of my trees. I prep the tree how high I'm going to be according to when I'm going to hunt the tree.
Okay.
If it's a tree that's going to be a rut phase location, I know all the foliage is going to be down.
Right.
I have to set up a little bit higher because I know I want to be up out of their peripheral vision so I don't get picked. Yep. If I'm going to hunt in a spot and I'm going to be in a pine tree where I've got a lot of good background cover, or it's an early season spot where the tree I'm in is going to have leaves on it and foliage for background cover, I may set up 20 feet, but typically I'm 25 to 30 feet. Okay. But I've shot deer out of a saddle as low as 12 feet off the ground in a cedar tree.
Okay. Yeah. I have some spots where I've thought about sitting lower in the tree, and it's a weird mental thing. I can't get over it. Like, I need to be higher up in the tree because I'm used to it being higher up in the tree.
You got a lot of mental blocks.
I do have a lot of mental blocks.
I will say one thing real brief.
Stop calling me out on my bullshit.
Piggyback off of that.
Piggyback.
One thing real briefly, when you get comfortable using a saddle after you've used it a few times, you definitely tend to be very comfortable hunting higher. Okay. Because you can't fall out of it.
Yeah.
With a tree stand, you are sitting with your back against the tree facing the abyss in front of you.
Yeah.
And when you start getting up above 20 feet, it feels a little scary. Once you get used to a saddle, you're tethered to the tree with a 6,000-pound rope.
Yeah.
You're very comfortable going up 25 or even 30 feet if you have to, because you know you're not going to fall.
I've got a hang-on that is sitting above a food plot on my land. And I'm telling you right now, this thing has to be 30 feet in the air.
Yeah.
But it's
that's rare.
Damn near the only tree in the area. It's a double sit, so that's actually my camera guy's seat, and then mine is just below that.
What about
I at least have a branch right underneath it, so I could, if I'm like, man, you know what, this is kind of sketchy, and I'm a fireman, so we climb ladders and all that kind of shit, but that's sketchy.
Yep. What about me and him? He filmed me one night. We set up a ladder stand in a tree. I won't let anybody else that leases my property with me sit in that tree. I'm like, it's not safe.
That's
You're not
stupid.
allowed to go to that tree. It's terrible.
It is
Me and
so
him set it up
stupid.
like in the dark, and it's terrible. I've sat in that tree with my saddle last year. I went around the other side of the tree because all the deer come to the south of it.
Right.
And I could sit on the north side of that tree, and it was perfect. Nothing ever.
It is a
No
stupid
shooters
tree.
came through.
Well,
But,
and I was gonna say, I was
No, go ahead.
talking to you guys earlier. Right next door to your booth is an outfitter, and the guy's like, I don't see a use for a saddle because we have hundreds of tree stands all over.
Yep.
And as it turns out, the guy says, "Well, I'm left-handed," and
that's Alfonso. Yeah.
and I go, "Well, then the saddle's perfect for you."
Yeah, it is.
I go, out of your hundreds of tree stands, how many of them are set up for right-handed shooters?
All of them.
And he's like, all but like 10. I go, yeah. So imagine if you could sit in that right-handed stand with a saddle, you're facing the tree, all of a sudden those right-handed stands are perfect for you as a left-handed shooter.
Yeah.
Because you're facing the wrong direction. And being a left-handed shooter, that's a big deal for me because
Me
when
too.
I go somewhere,
Yep.
I'm screwed.
Yeah.
None of those stands are set up
Yep.
right for me.
Yeah. No, I was there when you were talking about that. That's a great point.
At my lease, I lease land. We lease just about 500 acres in Jackson County. Everybody there's a right-handed shooter, and we go in. We don't want too many stands on the property. You set up your ground blind, do whatever you want with a climber, but we try to limit the amount of stands. But everybody there's a right-handed shooter. I'm the only lefty on the property, and it's the same
You're
thing.
weird,
I'm
that's
gonna
why.
go hit this food plot stand, which it doesn't bother me because I stand when I hunt anyway, and so I'm always standing looking at the tree even when I set my stands. And because just for the cover, and I get too antsy and I just want to stand it. And so it doesn't bother me, but for somebody else in that position that's actually trying to sit there and shoot sitting, I'm like, man, this is kind of brutal. With it, like you said, I was listening to that too because you're talking to Alfonso about that. Yeah. And that's a good reason to give
Well,
them.
and for them, they have all those stands set already because it's an outfitter.
Right.
Obviously. They have to. People are paying big money to just go sit somewhere and shoot deer. So, but I kind of talk the same thing. And he hunts Michigan. He had a lease in the thumb for years, and now they lost their lease. But it's to me, I don't know. This whole podcast has become a mixture between saddle hunting and the hunting community coming
Bringing
together,
everybody
bringing
close together.
in love, and about our moms loving us.
Right.
But
I'm telling
I
you,
think-
that's the highlight of my weekend. I cannot
I'm
wait to go back and
so
tell the
happy
staff
that it came together right here.
That story right
Yeah.
there.
I
We
really
can get on
I,
FaceTime.
I honestly think that we could talk about this for like 5 more hours. We're probably are tired and hungry because
We're at about an hour and a half, yeah, and the kitchen's
Oh, it's
closed.
an hour and a half
so-
already. So
We're an
yeah.
hour and a half in. If you guys are all right with
Yeah,
that.
we're going to close this out if you guys are cool with it.
Yeah, sorry for hijacking your podcast.
No,
Just
we
one of
were
those
glad
things.
you guys did. We really, I think the theme of the podcast, to me, we started this podcast without literally, like, we're in our booth today, and I'm like, what are we going to talk about tonight? And he's like, that's on you, dude. I'm engineering, and I'm like, fuck
We're
you.
talking about love.
I said, all right, well,
That's
we
what
got,
we're doing.
we got a
It
mixture
is
of
love.
people that we're talking about, and
Thank you very
I
much.
wanted that to happen.
Thank you.
It to me, saddle hunting, we wanted the podcast to be about that, with Tethrd being on the show, and then tying in how the hunting community comes together, and no matter what. Set aside your dramas. Set aside, I'm with this company or I'm with that company. We're all hunters. At the end of the day, we all
At
love
the end of the day, we can all shower at your mom's.
Awesome.
You can all shower at my mom's. You have to deal with their 2 crazy dogs and my screaming kid. But
We have
you
to
can
buy a
shower-
towel?
Yeah, no, they have towels there.
It's like a hotel.
Yeah.
It's
So
the
yeah, no,
Ziegler
it's
Inn.
just it's to me the coolest thing about hunting, that my dad brought me up hunting, and the coolest thing that I gotten out of that is the community, and now doing Times of Outdoors. I've met some people, and I think aside from saddle hunting, which we've talked about a lot, which I hope people listen to this podcast and get into saddle hunting, because I really, really love it. Maybe people take out of it, set aside your differences if you have a difference with somebody in the industry or in hunting community, and just realize that we're all on the same team, regardless of what your style is. if you're a clown that wears sick gear everywhere you go, or no, I'm just kidding.
I love that you said
you wear First Light or your Mark Kenyon and Meat Eater, whatever. You have a crush on Steve Rinella. We're all the same. We all hunt. We love it. We love the outdoors, and it's a dying industry. There's a lot less people doing it every year, and we all collectively have to do something to save that, I think, and inspiring new people to get into it. However they want to get into it is important. So, hopefully that's what this podcast will, touch on a little bit.
I mean, literally, we just sat down, spur of the moment, with a group of guys that essentially, other than Ernie and John, that we just met in these last 2 days, and we just had a ball. We drank some good beers and had a good time talking around. Yeah.
Good coffee.
So, yeah.
At the end of the day, get out there, kill
Just
something,
go out there and
buy a tag, and that's it.
Hunt.
I also think it's awesome at these shows that you see all these little kids, parents coming around with little kids that are getting into hunting, and that I've seen a couple little kids in the saddle today, and I had little kids come in my booth. I've given them a couple DVDs, and that's just cool to me.
Me and John have a 1-year. We both have 1-year-olds at home, and I cannot wait. I have stepkids that are of age to hunt, and they've all shot deer now. So getting the kids involved, that's like, it's better than anything.
Just don't let them shoot bigger ones than you, right?
Well, and I really think maybe this should be highlighted. At Time's Up, you guys do a fantastic job of taking kids hunting. Not your kids. You take every kid hunting.
Thank you.
You guys have done a fantastic job over the last year. I mean, I met you guys last year, and your whole deal was, hey, you're a kid. You want to go turkey hunting? You want to go turkey hunting?
Yeah,
and
we're giving
I don't
away
know how
turkey
many kids
for
you
kids.
got into that last year. I mean, how many different turkey hunts did you guys do last year?
We killed on camera 27, off camera 35.
Yeah, I mean, it's nuts.
And then I would say out of the 27 that were on camera, I would put at least 18 of those were brand new hunters.
Yeah.
And then deer as well.
Well, kids and even adults with that too. We got some teenage from a kid all the way up to I took my neighbor out hunting, never shot a turkey before.
A couple father son.
Yep. And my neighbor's 35 years old, so I mean,
That's
weird.
way cool.
Aside from, I was told when I was talking to somebody about sponsorship, I was telling him why we do it, and he said, "You're full of shit. You want to make money." At the end of the day, everybody needs to pay for their bills. I really truly believe we're firemen. We have a full-time job, and none of us want to quit that job. We love being firemen. This is our passion. We love hunting. We want to get people involved. We want to get more people to do what we do because it's the future of hunting and fishing. I mean, we're big into fishing too. So, but yeah, it's getting these kids involved. I have 4 kids. I have a whole basketball team at home. So, but I got all three of the older ones. They all got a deer this year, and it was, to me, I shot a doe. I didn't care that I just shoot them up. The kids shot a deer. That was the biggest thing, and just I think all of us, podcast wise and TV show or whatever you got going on, you're inspiring people to do that. Get out there in the outdoors, hunting, fishing, whatever it is that you're doing, and just keep doing it. And,
I will say, the books I wrote to make people better hunters.
Yeah.
And I definitely did not write. You don't make a lot of money with books.
Sure.
I
Right.
mean, unless you're selling, you're a president that's writing a book that's selling you millions of copies. So
Or you
I
hate
did
the
it-
president and you're
Or you
writing
hate the
books.
president, which I love the president right now. But anyway, I've always had the goal of making people better hunters, and I've had so much phenomenal feedback from that, from gratification, people that are becoming better hunters and killing better deer, because it changes your life. I've had letters and testimonials come back where people have said, man, I get along better with my wife during deer season now because I'm killing deer.
Yeah.
I don't have to go out there. I'm hunting smarter. I don't have to go out there as often. And the people in the community,
It's funny.
when I go in the sporting goods stores, they treat me differently.
Yeah.
So you're like a marriage
pissed
counselor.
off.
Yeah, kind of. And I just love it.
you're
I
saving
just
marriages
love
now.
making people better and more successful at what they're doing, because then they've got more of a passion to do it more. They're not going to get out of the sport.
we all play a little role. whatever our role is, we all play a little role.
Whatever we can do.
And keeping something we all love, that we were brought up doing, our fathers or whoever got us into it. My father personally, but we all play a little role, and we all hold a little bit of responsibility to keep it going.
My mom's an outdoor enthusiast.
Your mom
Ernie
loves
can
you.
attest to that.
Yeah.
That's all that matters, man.
So-
Your mom loves you.
So let's get some food. Let's wrap this up.
We're gonna bring that. No, your closing is stupid. We're gonna bring it full circle, and we're gonna say how the hunting industry all comes together in this point, podcast to podcast. We're gonna let Chronicles close this out. How about that?
Well, before they close it out, I just want to say this is by far my favorite podcast that I've recorded. But most of them have been recorded with him and Nico, and they're shitheads. So
Chronicles, give us a closer.
Well, I just want to say thanks for having us on here. You know, sitting down with Ernie and John Eberhart, Chad. So Chad, we got it's 10:48 right now. we have 5 hours. Chad loves a 3 a.m. hot dog in the rain.
Wonderful.
I'm not gonna lie to you about that one. That's one of his favorite pastimes. So
You gotta tell the story.
We gotta, no, that's
No, it's
that's-
way better to leave that
hanging.
obscure.
leave it obscure.
To be continued.
But you know, we're gonna have to do this. We'll have you guys on our podcast. We'll
I'd
record
love
something
to.
tomorrow,
I'd love
and
to.
I really appreciate you just having us on here. And John and Ernie, it's always a pleasure sitting down and talking bullshit and
No,
drinking
it's
some
fun
beers.
doing it, man.
So
So raise your hand. Whose name's John at this table?
yeah, it's easier.
Three of you?
It's just easier for all the Johns.
I'm the only Scott.
So
Awesome.
He's the only Ernie.
appreciate it.
Well, I
Yeah.
did meet Ernie.
Tune in.
today.
Thanks for listening.
Thanks for coming out, guys.
All right, thanks for listening.
Thanks a lot.
All right,
Our pleasure.
see ya.